What do you do when you're faced with the problem that is Lance Stroll? This season has been a rollercoaster of struggles for him on the racetrack, where he's often been left trailing in the wake of his formidable teammate, the legendary Fernando Alonso. And if that wasn't enough, the FIA has cast a shadow over him for his actions during the Qatar Grand Prix, leaving us all questioning his choices and behaviour. How does Aston Martin navigate this tumultuous journey with a driver who's not only struggling on the asphalt, but also grappling with off-track controversies that threaten to overshadow his talent? Let's find out. The place to start here is definitely with what happened during the Qatar Grand Prix. Lance Stroll's Friday was the worst of his season, and that's saying something considering how bad his qualifying has been this year. The Aston Martin driver, son of team owner Lance Stroll, was furious after only qualifying 17th at the Losail circuit. As his team wheeled him back into the garage, the 24-year-old threw his steering wheel in anger as a team member came to take it from him. He appeared to ignore obligatory weighing protocols and then shoved his personal trainer, Henry Howe, at the back of the garage. As Lance got out of the car, his trainer was seen wagging his finger at him, telling Lance that he needed to leave out the front of the garage to go and get weighed by the FIA, as every driver does after every competitive session. Lance instead pushed past Henry Howe, walking out to the back of the garage towards his room. Just as the two passed the corner, Howe was seen trying to step in front of Lance again, presumably insisting that he followed FIA protocol in getting himself weighed. That is when Lance was seen aggressively shoving his trainer out of his way. After breaking FIA protocol by not going to get himself weighed after leaving the car, Lance went to the media pen to give an interview that Kimi Räikkönen would have been proud of. The interviewer asked a clearly furious Lance Stroll, "Lance, we saw frustration from you on the TV screens. This obviously means so much to you. What are your emotions right now?" To which he replied, "Yeah, it's shh." The follow-up question, asking what was not clicking for him behind the wheel, was answered simply with, "I don't know." So yeah, not a happy Friday for Lance. His Saturday was just as bad. 16th in the sprint shootout and then 15th in the sprint proper. He was the last of the actual finishers to cross the line. Sunday was better. He actually crossed the line in 9th, but his track limit violations saw him demoted to 11th. That made it his 5th race weekend in a row without any points. The calls for his removal from the team are only going to get louder at this point, and rumours are that his own mother and father are trying to find a way for him to leave F1 without being embarrassed. But the FIA investigation isn't into how badly he's driving compared to his teammate, so let's come back to that later in the video. Now let's get into what the FIA are looking at. An FIA spokesperson said in a statement on Monday, the FIA compliance officer is in discussion with Lance Stroll in relation to several incidents that may have contravened FIA rules, policies and procedures during the Qatar Grand Prix. As much as we would like him to be investigated for his behaviour, this likely doesn't relate to that. If Henry Howe wants to complain, it'll have to be to the team, but considering Lance's dad pays everyone's wages, I can't see anything coming from it. There has been no official word on which regulations Stroll may have broken, but it is understood they relate to the key moments of what took place in the garage. Stroll's antics will likely come under the auspices of the catch-all disrepute clause in the FIA International Sporting Code. Article 12.2.1.c states that a competitor will be deemed to have committed an offence if they are found guilty of any fraudulent conduct or any act prejudicial to the interests of any competition or to the interests of motorsport generally. It was the rule that Max Verstappen was found to have breached when he pushed Esteban Ocon in the FIA garage after the 2018 Brazilian Grand Prix. The Dutchman was ordered to complete 2 days of public service for the FIA as a consequence. Missing the weigh-in is definitely an investigatable offence as well, and will be one of the several incidents mentioned in the FIA statement. Although Stroll's actions were heavily criticised by observers, his Aston Martin team has said it's not too alarmed with what he did. Team principal Mike Crack said after the Qatar Grand Prix that it was important not to read too much into the behaviour of a driver straight after they have jumped out of a car and the adrenaline will still be pumping. "I think emotions is what we want from sportsmen, and then if they react, then we judge them quickly," explained Crack. Is this right? Is this wrong? I think we need to be careful with that. We want to see it because then we have something to talk about. But then I think it goes one step too far when you have 10 people sitting down on the sofa or in an air-conditioned room and saying, "This is too much," or "You cannot do that." I think we need to have a bit more respect for the drivers and for elite sportsmen, I would say. Have you ever heard a more disappointing statement? You can't blame Mike Crack for attempting to defend his driver because of the Daddy Stroll thing, but still, Saying that you want to see drivers pushing their support staff because it gives you something to talk about misses the mark by a distance larger than the distance between Lance and Alonso in the Drivers' Championship. Is shoving someone really that awful? If we're honest, no, it isn't. Should Aston Martin instantly fire him or the FIA ban him from the sport? Absolutely not. That just isn't proportionate to the crime. But even so, there's no doubt Stroll shoving his personal trainer crossed the line of acceptability. It's one thing to vent your frustration by smashing objects or throwing things, quite another to do it to another human being. We want to see emotion from drivers. It is entertaining, it is exciting, but that emotion needs to be channeled in a way that is acceptable. Perhaps next time Lance could take his anger out on his helmet a la Toto Wolff's trademark headset smash. We'll have to wait to hear from the FIA before we know what, if anything, is his punishment, whatever the FIA decides he's done wrong. But what does the future hold for Lance after another abysmal weekend? Like I said earlier in the video, there are rumours around the Aston Martin team that they're looking for a way for Lance to leave the sport with some dignity. His mother is putting pressure on her son to end his motorsport career this year after a number of accidents, according to a report from F1 Insider. It is also reported that Aston Martin no longer rule out a retirement for their youngest driver. The announcement of Aston Martin's entry into the World Endurance Championships and the IMSA Sports Car Championship makes the report even more interesting. The company will run at least one of its Valkyrie hypercars in both championships from 2025 onwards, a plan that was originally scrapped in 2020. The revival of the brand's endurance racing aspirations is being seen by many as a chance for Lance to move into another category and allow the F1 team to continue with a more talented driver. If Lance were to retire from Formula 1 and make the transition to endurance racing, it would save him any embarrassment and would provide Aston Martin with an excellent driver for endurance racing. It is important to remember that Lance Stroll is an excellent racing driver. Any driver who makes it to Formula 1 has to be one of the best racers in the world. Competing at Le Mans is an honour in itself. His current teammate retired to compete in the race, winning it before returning to F1. Antonio Giovinazzi won the most recent instalment of the historic race with Ferrari, and Lance is at least as good as he is. For now, the newly formed Aston Martin Endurance team are leaving all avenues open for either of their F1 drivers, stating that everyone in the Aston Martin racing stable will be given the opportunity to test the cars as the program begins, and any that perform could earn themselves a seat in the car. So, what do you do when you're faced with the problem that is Lance Stroll? Well, it seems that spending tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars starting a new endurance racing team could be the answer. Whether Lance does make the move or not remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: many fans and pundits think it is time for him to go. Speaking to Sky Sports F1, Nico Rosberg said, "It's a difficult situation. If he wasn't the son of the man who owns the team, then he wouldn't be driving at this level next year." Is Rosberg right? Would Lance be out of the team if it wasn't for Lawrence? Let me know your thoughts on the FIA investigation as well. And until next time, drive safe and bye for now.